separate our image into different layers that we'll then be able to control individually later in After Effects. So let's see how that works. Now, we don't want to just do this in a very basic way. We want to have a lot of control later in After Effects. So in addition to the normal image sequence, I'm going to output various layers, break down the image into different layers, and also output some masks so that we can selectively affect different areas of our image later in After Effects. So this will make more sense if I just show you. If I go to the Output tab to start with, let's go for a resolution of 1920 by 1080 and a frame rate of 24. We are outputting all the frames. Let's go to the Save tab, and the format I like to use is PNG 16-bit. This is what I use for like 99% of my projects. And we can specify a output path. Let's create a new folder for our main sequence and call it main sequence. I'll just call it main S, okay? And in here, I will just save this as main. So this is for our regular image, and I will always render this out as a backup. But what I actually make use of in After Effects are multi-pass layers. So if I go down here to multi-pass, for this particular project, we are going to export the ambient layer, the specular, reflection, and atmosphere. So you might be wondering what they are. So let's untick save up here so we can just output to the picture viewer. And we will see this broken up into those 4 layers I just showed you. It's attempting to render the entire sequence. So I will stop it after just this first frame. Actually, I don't have to. I can just go to layer over here and single pass. And now I can click these layers we have just enabled in the output. So atmosphere will contain just the fog. Reflection, as the name suggests, are the reflections in the scene. Ambient contains any object with a luminance channel, in this case just the galaxy. Specular, actually, I thought I had real lights in the scene, but actually we don't need it. You can see it's completely blank. So we are going to not include that. If I press escape, that's going to stop the render. And let's go back here. We don't want to output anything unnecessarily, so let's delete that. Okay, so actually we're just going to use those 3 layers. In addition to separating our image into the different layers, we also want to create masks for the various objects in the scene. If I start with the character, I'm gonna go to render tags once again and compositing, and there is a tab here called object buffer. This is what the masks are called in Cinema 4D. So let's enable this, and then let's go to the columns and let's enable buffer number 2. So we just make sure that each buffer contains only one group of objects. You can of course combine things if you want, like we just did there. All of these will be combined into group number 2, but these are all pillars. I'm just separating the objects in groups. So for the galaxy in the distance, I will put another compositing tag there and enable buffer number 3, and then that leaves just the floor. So let's go to render tags, compositing, and this is going to be in object buffer number 4. We could take this even further and do things like put the the side bits in their own buffer too. In fact, I will do just that. So that's this sides object. This will be in number 5. So with that setup in the compositing tags, we need to go to our render settings again, multi-pass, and let's add the object buffers. And however many you set up here is how many you will need in the render settings. So we have 5, Let's select all of them at once by holding Shift and just selecting the first and last one. And then we just need to make sure these IDs go from 1 through to 5, just like we set up in the project. So let me go to output, current frame for now, and I am still not saving anything here because I am just testing to see if my layers have been split up how I want. So once again, if I go to the layer tab, let's go to single pass. We have our 3 image layers, and then on top of that we have these object buffers or masks, which we can make use of in After Effects as the Luma mats and track mats to only affect those parts of the image. So exporting your image this way just gives you a lot more control in After Effects later on. I'm happy with how this is going to output. If I now re-enable the Save tab, let's also make sure that our multipass image, which is all of these, are going somewhere. So this will be the same settings as above, PNG 16-bit. We just need to also save this into a different folder. So I'm going to call this multi2, and let's save that in here as simply multi. So we have our main image sequence rendering to this folder, and then all of these various multipass layers rendering to a separate folder. Once I am happy with this setup, I can either render to Picture Viewer, which just renders in this window here, and let's make sure that we are doing all frames, because I have done that before where I thought I was rendering an entire animation only to return and realize I outputted a single frame. And of course this would take some time, so this is something I would recommend you do overnight perhaps, or if you're heading out somewhere for the day, you can leave this rendering on your computer. You can of course do things like lower the anti-aliasing settings. That's going to speed up your render, or lowering the resolution too, but in general, rendering in 3D is a time-consuming process. Another way to render is to go to the top part of our menu under Render, and let's add this to a render queue. This is the one we have just added, and this will show up here in this queue, and you can line up several renders if you wanted to, and then when you're ready to go, just start rendering, and then this will start processing in the background. It gives you an estimated time remaining based on how long it takes to render each frame, and once that first frame finishes, you can actually double click to view this in the Picture Viewer. This is that first frame we'll be cutting out later because it always renders incorrectly because of that fog glitch, but subsequent frames will render correctly anyway. But that's it. That is how we output our image sequence from Cinema 4D. With our animation finished, we need to bring all those images into After Effects.